This video is part of a series of videos that I'm making to help people become better users of the Linux operating system, in particular learning to work from the command line. However, the topic I'm going to discuss today, which is regular expressions, is not really operating system specific. So with the right tools, you could do what I'm talking about today on Windows or Mac OS. So look at this file here and note that I'm using the Vim editor. So I might want to do a search and replace for the pattern cat. And we can see here's cat, here's cat, here's cat, here's cat. But here's two words that contain CAT. So let's see what happens. So in Vim, I'm going to press colon. I use the % if I want to apply this to every line in the file. And then I'm going to write s/ whatever the old pattern is / new pattern /. Okay. So what I want here is cat / and let's replace with mouse. And in order to see what's happening on a word by word basis, I'm going to confirm by putting a C. So we haven't used a regular expression yet, really. But let's see what happens when I do this. So yeah, I want to replace that. Yeah, I want to replace that. But no, I don't replace that because that's actually part of a different word. And so what happened? Well, it didn't replace this cat. It didn't replace this cat. So I can fix one of those problems by putting a G here. This also isn't necessarily a regular expression thing. It partly is. But the G means to apply this globally, because without the G, it just finds the first match per line. So here it finds this cat, but it skips this one. And this was skipped because of the way it's spelled. This is capital C-A-T instead of all lowercase c-a-t, which is what I said. So putting the G there will allow me to do this. Yes, yes, yes. No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. Okay. So let's undo that. So how do I fix things like this? Or what if I want to replace just cat at the beginning of a line like this one and this right here? Or just the end of a line like here? Or things that are truly the word cat, not part of a larger sequence of characters. How do I do those types of things? Well, that's where a regular expression can be used. Regular expressions allow us to represent abstract concepts like the beginning of a line, the end of a line, a digit character, an alphabetic character, things like that. But first, let's look and see how prevalent regular expressions are. Turns out you can use them in lots of places if you use the right libraries or the right tools. So here's some libraries that support regular expressions. Notice abbreviated here is regex. This tells you what language this is for. So this is for C++. Here's one for Java. Some more for Java for MATLAB. Things like that. C. Here's some languages that have support for it. I've used it in Perl and Python before, primarily Python. Here's some different concepts that regular expressions can support, and this shows you how well they're supported by these different things. Here's Vim, so it doesn't support whatever this is, recursion. Okay, so there is quite a bit of support for regular expressions if you use the right tools or the right libraries. Now, one of the things to note, though, is that while technically there is a standard for regular expressions, not all tools will support the standard. In fact, probably none of them do, but I don't really know for sure. Also, another thing to keep in mind is the way that different tools support an idea, like the beginning of a line or end line or whatever, may differ. Now, those particular things, the beginning of a line and end of line, I've never known them in the tools that I've used. I've never known them to not be a caret. Should be a caret for beginning of a line and $sign to be end of a line. But I can't claim that every single thing on that list or anything not on that list uses these particular characters, but my experience has been these have always been the same. But one place where I know that they can differ is that if you do a search online for a regular expression to represent something, let's say you're wanting to do this. You're wanting to match ABC or BC, meaning you want 0 or more occurrences of the letter A followed by B or C. Well, if you look online, what you're likely to find to match that would be A question mark BC. And what the question mark means is match 0 or 1 occurrences of the previous character, which in this case happen to be A, followed by the letters B and C. All of these in lowercase. Okay? Well, A doesn't have to be lowercase. It's just whatever characters before this. Well, in Vim, which is what I'm going to test these things with, you'd write it like this. \= to represent the idea of 0 or more occurrences of the previous character. So if you find a regular expression example that is supposed to do what you want but doesn't seem to work, it may be that you're not using the right characters. Or it could be that in some languages you have to escape things, whereas in other languages you don't have to escape. Escape means I'm using some character like the \, to say treat the following character in a special way. If you've ever programmed, you're probably used to representing new lines by \n, right? This says don't treat this as the letter N like in the word beginning. These two characters together represent the concept of a new line. Okay, like this is cat, new line down to rabbit, cat, new line down to horse, and so forth. So let's clean this up, and let's look at one more thing before we do some examples. On my webpage, Brazil.com, here I have my Vim notes, and if you scroll down to the search and replace section, right here, you can see here's some regular expressions. So I'm not going to go through these examples. You may want to if you're using Vim, but we'll do some examples in this file here. So let's start first with matching cat or cat spelled like this. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to build up some of these examples. So we want all lines, search, and I'm going to put in square brackets C or capital C. Or that is lowercase c, uppercase C, and then /mouse. And I'm going to do it globally and confirm. Now what does this mean? This says match any character in the square brackets. So I could have thrown in, Z if I wanted to or whatever. Or like if I want to match the U here. Well, actually, that's not part of AT, but I don't see any other examples that have AT with some other character before it. But this would say match a lowercase c and uppercase C or Z if that's what I wanted. Okay, so let's see what happens. Yes, yes, yes. Now it matches that. Yes, but I don't want to match that, and I don't want to match this. Okay. Oops. Let's get out of that. So let's undo these things. So how do I tell it only find the word cat, not part of something larger? Well, I can use what are called check for these boundaries. So to represent the beginning of a word, I'm going to use \left bracket, because a bracket by itself is just a bracket. This would look specifically for the left bracket. This says look for the left word boundary, and this is the right word boundary. So let's see what happens. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so it didn't even try to match cat here or cat here because CAT are part of a larger pattern. So it worked. What if I only wanted to find CAT all in lowercase, but only at the beginning of a line? Well, that's where I can use the caret that I was talking about before. So yes, yes. What about CAT only at the end of a line? Yes. And remember, this one is not lowercase CAT, so it didn't match that. So it matched everything I told it to match. What if I want to find CAT followed by any character? And that wouldn't include new lines, but CAT followed by any character and replace it with mouse. Okay, well, space is a character technically, so yes, 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 and yes. So that matched everything. What about CAT, some number of characters followed by OG? Let's see what happens when I try this. So a dot represents any character. So let's say I put this. This will turn out to be wrong, but let's see what happens. So I'm thinking CAT something that I don't know yet, followed by OG. Let's see what happens. Well, it says it doesn't match. And why? Well, this has a character and a second character followed by OG. And this also does the same thing. Now, if I knew specifically that I want to match two characters, I could put two dots, and that would match that, yes, and yes, as well as that, excuse me. But what if it varied? What if it was like cat, dog, like that? Now if I try to do that, then I have, yes, it matches that. It did not match this, but then it matches this. So what I want to do in this case then is, instead of saying dot dot, I'm going to say dot asterisk. The asterisk says 0 or more occurrences of the previous character. So it matches that, yes, yes, yes. And what it also would match, let's add the word down here, cat og, if that's what I wanted. So now let's try this, yes, 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 yes. Because there were 0 letters, let's look at it again. So it's CAT, 0 other characters followed by OG. So it does match that pattern. So there's a bunch of different ways that I've used regular expressions. So which part of this is really the regular expression? Well, this whole thing is a regular expression, right? The other parts are just how Vim lets you do the search and replace. So this isn't really the regular expression. The G probably would be, because lots of times you need to say do things globally or don't use it globally, things like that, right? So I'll put this file back the way I had it. Let's look at another example. So here I see this file and you think, okay, what do I want to do with this? Well, let's use cat to look at that. Now if I do it like this, I simply just display the file and you can't really see any differences. Let me clear this. And now we'll do, look at this again. So this allows me to do two things at once. I'm going to clear and then follow it by using cat-tev. And let's look first and see what that even means. So if we look at the man page for this, man cat, I want the 1, so I'm going to choose 1. And this shows me the command line parameters I can use. So I'm going to use tev. Here's the lowercase e. It's equivalent to this, which really says do this. Okay, so don't put a $sign for the end of the line. I'm going to hit space to go through this. Here's lowercase t, which matches up with lowercase v, capital T, which is this. This don't show me tabs. And then the V is showing me non-printing characters, and there won't be any here. So quit, I use Q to get out of that. So what I want to do is clear, and then cat-tev, ex2-regx. So what this shows me is now there's a bunch of spaces at the end of the first line. Here's 4. This is the way it represents a tab. So this is tab, tab, a bunch of spaces. There's no white space here, and then there's some white space here. And of course we can see in the file that white space, that white space, that white space. So if I scroll over here or move over here, yeah, there's some white space there. Tab, tab, white space, no white space. Yeah, there's some white space here. So it does exist. So what I want to do here is I want to get rid of the white space at the end. So I might think, okay, here's my pattern. On every line, I'm going to replace the space, we'll replace the space with nothing. So let's see what happens when I do this. Wow, that doesn't seem to be what I wanted. So what happened? Well, without using global, I just replaced the first space. So you say, okay, well, I want to do it globally because I want to get rid of all those at the end of the line. So I put a G, but I actually just got rid of everything. So what do I need to do now? Let's go back and fix this. Well, I want the space at the end. Well, let's first fix it back to what it was. So what does this do? Well, it doesn't look like it worked, but this says it worked. So what happened? Or maybe it did work and I just can't see it. Let's look at this again. Well, it turns out it didn't actually work the way I wanted. If we had the previous run of cat on this, we'd see that the dollar signs moved to the left by 1. This pattern, as I've written it, let's undo this. And we'll run the pattern again. So now we'll just do this. And so now I'm going to save this. You can see dollar sign here, and this is to the right. So all I did with the regular expression I had over here is this simply gets rid of a single space at the end of the line. I want to get rid of all the spaces, or all the white space at the end. So now I'm going to use dollar sign star again, and let's see what happens. Let's see if it worked. Well, it fixed this line, but here's the 2 tabs. If this line didn't need to be fixed, it fixed this line, so it did fix some of those lines. Let's undo all this again to see what would happen. And let's go back and look at this. Turns out there's a way to represent any white space character using \s. Just like \d represents, or lowercase d, excuse me, represents a digit character. \uppercase d is a non-digit character. Here would be alphabetic characters, lowercase, uppercase, anything considered part of a word, printable characters, whatever. These represent entire concepts. So what I really want is to represent any white space character, to get rid of everything. So now instead of a space, I'm going to use \s, and it says it did 4 substitutions, but it's matching the entire pattern and replaced it with nothing. So let's see what happened now. Got rid of the spaces, got rid of the tabs. This is what the original was. The tab space, nothing to do here. Spaces, okay, so it worked. So the pattern again was this. This represents a single white space character. The star says match 0 or more occurrences of it at the end. And the dollar sign, or 0 or more of whatever precedes it, the dollar sign says at the end in G. What I also could have used, and probably really should use, here is the plus sign. But here I have to escape it. In some regular expression, or some tools that use regular expressions, you would just use a plus by itself. But in Vim, I have to escape it. And this says 1 or more occurrences of white space. So let's undo the changes here. Let's see if I really did undo it. Okay, so I'll put the white space back. Let's see if that would work. So what was the difference? Well, it actually did not change this line because there was no white space here. Where it matters is that if I was doing something like this, if I was wanting to replace, say, things at the end, let's say I was replacing it with this, and I just use star. And I'm thinking replace this space with an X, all these spaces with X's, or a single X for the whole pattern. Let's see what this does. Wow, that's not quite what I want. Because it's finding 0 white space between each character. So that's not really what I want. Let's undo that, actually. And now let's see if I put a plus in there, or \+ actually, and see what it does. Okay, that's actually what I wanted. Well, not at the beginning of the line, but it did at least work here and here. So the plus had a different effect on it. So ultimately the pattern I want in this case, if I wanted to just clean up the white space at the end, the ultimate pattern was this right here. Let's see if that worked again. And yeah, that worked. Let's look at another example. So here's a C program that I wrote, and for a long time the way I would format my curly brackets to represent the logic is I would put them in the same concept, or excuse me, the same column as whatever they matched up with. So like these curly brackets represent that they go along with this. These two curly brackets go along with the while. These two go with the if. But a lot of people start the left bracket or the left curly bracket on the line of the thing that they go along with. And I've started to do that myself. So how can I clean this up? So what's the pattern here? Well, somehow I need to take this and delete it, but put one up here. Well, it turns out what I can do is basically what separates this and this is that there's a new line in here. So let's see what I do here. So I'm going to say for every line, I'm going to put S/ and the new line is represented by \n. Okay? So I'm going to say \n and the left curly bracket and replace it by space curly bracket because I don't want to have the curly bracket right next to the right parenthesis. I want to have a space in there. Let's see if this does what I want. And I'm going to hit enter. Well, it fixed this one. But what happened here? Well, this isn't at the beginning of the line. There's white space in here, just like there's white space in here. So let's undo that to see what would happen if I fix it. And now I'm going to say there is, I could just say white space, but I always just use spaces. So I'm going to say space and 0 or more occurrences. See if I put a plus in this one. Oops. This needs to be escaped. I fixed these two, but didn't fix this one because there's 0 spaces in here. So really the right pattern was to use my star here. So space star. So this says find a new line. There's a new line on each of these lines, right? That's how I get to the next line. There's no new line here because this is the end of the file. So new line, and there's also a new line here, here. So new line followed by any number of spaces, including 0, followed by a left curly bracket. Replace those with a single space, left curly bracket. Well, there's everything I need right there. Okay. Let me undo that. What if what I want to do is in between a block and the curly bracket that's the body of the block, what if I want to insert a C-style comment? Now, what I'm getting at is I would want something like this. /*, // and then maybe I can fill in the comment later. And I'll do this for each of these. Now, the one problem I will have is I won't be able to, at least not easily, match the level of indentation. So I would have to fix that. But how do I put this in here? Well, these include slashes, but slashes are already used. Well, Vim will allow me to change the characters that I use in my pattern. So like equal, old, equal, new. And I can choose the pattern. I'll use an equal, but I could use some other character that won't naturally show up. I don't have to do that, but the problem I would get into is this. In order to match, say, a slash, or a slash, if I was trying to match that, is I would have to escape it. So I'd have to do something like this if I was trying to match the pattern. Inserting it might not be a problem. Let's see what happens. So I want to find basically what I did before. Sorry. This right here, but I'm going to put in, and actually I don't think I need those. Well, I do need those here. /*, star. See how I had to escape those? And actually I should have put a new line in there. That's something else I'm showing you here. But it does show that it did find it, but I had to escape those. So let's do a couple of things here. One, I'm going to use this. And how do I put in new lines? Because what I want to say is find a new line, replace it with a new line to get to the next line where I put in the comments. So now I'm going to say new line. number of white space characters, including 0, followed by a curly bracket, and I'm going to replace that with this right here, and I'm going to explain what I'm doing here in a moment. Slash star, some room to write something in, slash star, and then put back a curly bracket. Or actually, let's not even do that. We'll do this. What we're going to match will be this. So what am I matching now instead? I'm looking for this, and I should have fixed the file. I'm looking for the right parentheses on each of these. So it didn't match because I had my question marks in there. I mean, I had my comments already. Let's fix that. Now let's try my pattern. And it worked, other than the fact I would have to then fix these like that. At least if I want to do it easily. Well, this isn't actually what I want. I don't want to change these, so let's do this. So I'm going to go back and fix this. And now after I put this in, I want to put in a new line. Or actually, Control VM. And that's actually what I wanted. Where then I would have to fix these. And it looks like I fixed one too many things. Let's try one more time. See if this gives me what I want. Oops, that's not a pattern. So what I was trying to do is not to break the curly brackets. So, but let's move on to what what looks like this. What appears to be this is really what I typed in this. Control. Well, I didn't actually type CTRL, so Control key, followed by a lowercase v, and immediately follow that by CTRL M. Pressing those two characters together gives me what shows up as this. That's my way of inserting a new line. Because what would happen if I did this instead? If I do this, well, I get these funky things, which isn't what I wanted. So it needs to be Control VM, Control VM. Let's see what happens if we do those in there. So that inserted an extra blank line in there. So really one should have been enough. And yeah, it was. All right. Let's move on to another example. This will be our final example. So here I have a file. I have a last name, comma, space, first name. But what if I really want to have first name, last name? With or without a comma, depending on what I want to do. Well, how do I do that? Well, for this, I'm going to use what's called grouping. So I'm going to create groups and then use references to those groups. Reference. Okay? So how do I do that? So I want to apply this to every line. And so what I need to do is somehow capture the last name and capture the first name. And this is where the commas come in handy. Without the commas, this would be more difficult. Not necessarily in this case because I have a single last name, but if I had, like some people write their names like this, it might be Douglas Williams with or without a hyphen. If it had a hyphen, well, it would be one word. But what if I had this? This would be hard to match with a regular expression because I don't know which part is the last name, or which isn't part of the last name, or whatever. With the commas, I can still easily do it. In fact, let's do that. We'll put the commas back in there. And so I have what's called a comma-separated value file, or CSV. Right. So let's see what happens here. So here's my pattern I want to match. And I want to capture these characters and these characters and then reverse the set of characters. And then I'll get rid of the commas and the space. So how do I do that? Well, I need to escape these parentheses, because if I just write this, it's looking literally for left parentheses, which is not what I want, in this case at least. So I escape those. I will match any number of characters followed by a comma, space, and then capture these. So what does it say? These characters that come before a comma and a space, and these characters that follow it. And now I replace these by putting \2 space \1. So \1 is whatever this pattern is, \2 is this pattern, and so forth. So let's see what happens. So Mary Ann Douglas Williams, Ralph Wiggum, Ray Adams. So it matched all those. If I wanted to, I could make it a true comma separated values file, and I could say, okay, say put a comma in here. Whether or not I want a space, that's debatable. But maybe if I want to import this file into a spreadsheet, I might need the commas to separate out the columns. Then I could do that. So here's still first name, comma, last name, first name, and middle name, comma, last name, and so forth. So I can do all that. So that's called grouping and using references. So I use that quite a bit, actually, to move things around. So there's 4 examples using Vim. Now these things also can extend to the command line. Let's put these back. Using grep. Grep actually stands for Global Regular Expression Parser. So if we look at the first file, you can see references to cat. I could use grep to find cat. In fact, I do that kind of thing a lot. So maybe I'm doing grep cat, say, in all these files, so ex_star.txt. It only finds those occurrences. But I also can use regular expressions. Now, sometimes you need to use quotes. It depends on whether or not the characters you're writing will confuse what's on the command line. So I still could probably do this. There's capital C. And so now I found this cat as well. But we'll notice if I try this right here, it doesn't work. What I need to do is quote this. And now it worked. And I could have used quotes probably on these other things. There's all occurrences of that. Let's see what we get with this. So I didn't need the quotes for just looking for the literal word cat, even using this. But I did need it for looking for the word boundary. Now, if I was looking for spaces, like if I was looking for, let's see what the file looks like again. If I was looking for cat space dog, this would be a problem if I didn't quote it, because now I'm using a space, and spaces on the command line are used to separate from different parts. So if I tried grep, cat, dog, even if I tell it what file it is, see, it thinks I'm looking for different files. It thinks that dog is a file and ex1 is a file, and so it's confused. So what I really would need to do in this case would be quote it. So now it knows that it's this sequence of characters within this file or what I'm looking for. See, because it even matched these other cats. Because what it thinks I wrote in the first case, when I wrote this, it thinks I said, look for cat inside file 1, file 2, so forth, where these were the names of the files. And there is no file called dog. So that's why I need to be quoted. So I can use regular expressions with grep But it's not doing a replacement there, it's just doing a search. And so that's something useful. But as I stated at the beginning of this video, regular expressions are not specific to Linux. It's specific to tools or libraries. And so if you're using Windows but programming in C++ and you need to search for a regular expression or use a regular expression, there's libraries for that, so you could put that to use.